You wake up, you check your phone, you scroll for a while before your feet even touch the floor. Then you rush through breakfast, fight traffic, and sit at a desk for 8 hours straight. It feels exhausting. It feels like too much. But the real answer to what your ancestors did all day is far stranger than anything you're doing right now. For most of human history, there was no alarm clock. There was no commute. There was no 8-hour shift. Ching. And yet your ancestors survived, thrived, and passed their genes all the way down to you. So what were they actually doing with their time? Let's start with a number that surprises almost everyone. Anthropologist Marshall Solins studied hunter-gatherer societies in the 1960s. He found that many of them worked only 3 to 5 hours a day. Not 8, not 10. 3 to 5, that's it. The rest of the time was rest. Talk, play, sleep sound impossible? It isn't, Ching. Because survival back then didn't mean grinding through a to-do list. It meant knowing exactly where the food was, exactly when to move, and exactly how to read the land. Efficiency, not effort, was the goal. Think about that for a second. Your ancestors were not lazy. They were optimized. A day usually began at first light. No jarring alarm, just the natural rhythm of the sun and the sound of the group stirring. Cortisol rises gently with the sunrise. Ching. Your body still does this today, even under fluorescent lights and blackout curtains. That biological clock never left you. Foraging came next, and it wasn't random wandering. Anthropologist Richard Lee studied the Juhansi people of the Kalahari Desert in the 1960s. He documented that most caloric needs were met by gathering plants, roots, and nuts. Meat was valuable, but inconsistent. Gathering was the steady backbone of the diet. Here's the twist. Ching meat gets all the glory in movies about early humans. Spears, hunts, danger. But most of the calories that kept your ancestors alive came from something far less dramatic: digging, picking, and carrying. Why does this matter to you? Because your brain still associates effort with reward, gathering with satisfaction. Ever feel that small dopamine hit when you find a good parking spot or snag a discount? That's the forager brain, still running old software in a new world. Ching. Midday brought heat, and heat brought rest. In many hunter-gatherer societies, the hottest hours were spent in shade, not labor. Sitting, talking, doing small tasks like repairing tools or preparing food. This wasn't a lunch break stolen from a boss. It was built into the rhythm of survival itself. Work when conditions allow it. Rest when they don't. Your ancestors didn't fight their environment. They moved with it. Social time filled enormous portions of the day. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner studied the Juhansi and found that nighttime conversation, often unrelated to practical matters, made up a huge share of daily social interaction. People told stories, they gossiped. They argued about relationships and reputations, not survival tips, not hunting strategy gossip. Here's the counterintuitive twist. This constant talking wasn't wasted time. It was the glue holding the entire group together. Stories transmitted values. Gossip regulated behavior. Ching. Laughter built trust. In a world without written law, social bonding was survival infrastructure. Your brain still craves this. That's why a group chat notification lights up your reward system almost as fast as food does. That's why silence in a room full of people feels uncomfortable. You're wired for constant social maintenance. Because for most of human history, that maintenance kept you alive. Now here's where it gets even stranger. Play wasn't just for children. Anthropologists studying contemporary hunter-gatherer societies have repeatedly noted extensive adult play. Wrestling, dancing, music, teasing games. This wasn't a break from real work. It was in many ways the actual point of surplus time. Evolutionary psychologist Peter Gray has argued that hunter-gatherer childhoods were saturated with unstructured play, and that this play built the exact skills needed for adult cooperation and problem-solving. Play wasn't preparation for later life. Ching. It was practice for being human. Compare that to your week. When was the last time you played, not for productivity, not to relax before returning to work, but simply because it felt good to move your body and laugh with other people? As the day faded, so did most obligations. Sleep patterns weren't as rigid as you might imagine. Sleep researcher Jerome Siegel studied 3 modern hunter-gatherer groups and found something unexpected. They didn't sleep drastically more than industrialized humans, but their sleep was tied tightly to darkness, not to schedules, screens, or stress. No blue light at 11 p.m., no scrolling until your eyes burn. Just firelight, conversation, and eventual natural drowsiness. Here's the deep mirror in all of this. Your ancestors' days were not defined by hustle. They were defined by rhythm. Work, rest, food, talk, play, sleep, repeating in a loop tuned by millions of years of evolution. Your modern life stretches that rhythm until it snaps. You compress rest into weekends, you isolate play into scheduled self-care. You separate socializing into calendar invites labeled catch up. The pieces are still there, they're just scattered, squeezed, and monetized. This is why so many people today feel a strange nagging hunger for something they can't quite name. Ching. It's not a hunger for more hours. It's a hunger for that ancient rhythm. Purposeful effort followed by real rest, real connection, real play, all within the same day. Anthropologist James Sussman has argued that the modern obsession with constant productivity is a historical anomaly, not a human default. For nearly all of human history, time was abundant. Scarcity of time is new. Scarcity of food was old. You didn't evolve to optimize a calendar. Ching. You evolved to read a landscape, share a fire, and laugh at the end of a short workday. So the next time you feel exhausted by a life that looks nothing like a hunt or a gather, remember this. Your body isn't broken. Your instincts aren't outdated. They're simply living inside a structure that ancient humans would find almost unrecognizable. Ching. Let's slow down and look closer at how strange this really is. Because the deeper you go, the less your ancestors' lives resemble anything in a textbook diagram. Take tool use. You probably picture a caveman chipping away at a rock for hours, hunched over in total concentration. But archaeologist Kim Sterelny has pointed out that tool-making among early humans was often a social activity, not a solitary one. People sat together while they worked. They talked while they shaped stone. They taught children by letting them watch, then try, then fail, then try again. This means even the productive hours weren't isolated grinding. They were woven into conversation, mentorship, and connection. Compare that to your version of focused work. Headphones on, notifications off, door closed, efficient maybe, but also strangely lonely in a way your ancestors would have found bizarre. Now think about movement stretching. Modern life treats exercise as a separate category, something you schedule, track, and sometimes dread. Your ancestors didn't work out. They simply moved as part of living, walking to find food, carrying water, climbing for fruit, squatting to dig roots. Evolutionary biologist Daniel Lieberman has studied contemporary hunter-gatherer activity levels and found that their daily movement was frequent but rarely extreme, more like continuous light to moderate activity than punishing workouts. No marathons. No maximal effort. Just steady, varied motion spread across the day. Your body still expects this. That's part of why sitting for 9 hours at a desk, then squeezing in a single intense gym session can feel so unsatisfying. You're trying to compress an entire day's worth of ancestral movement into 60 minutes, then wondering why your body still feels restless afterward. Now consider decision-making. You make hundreds of small choices a day. What to eat, what to wear, which app to check first. This constant decision load is often called decision fatigue, and it's remarkably modern. Your ancestors made fewer decisions, but the ones they made mattered enormously. Which direction to forage, whether a sound in the grass was danger or nothing, whether to trust a stranger approaching the camp. These decisions were high stakes, but low in number. Yours are low stakes, but overwhelming in number. This mismatch explains something curious. You can feel completely drained after a day where you didn't do anything physically demanding at all. Your ancestors would have found this exhausting without effort feeling almost incomprehensible because their exhaustion usually came from something they could point to: a long walk, a heavy carry, a difficult hunt. There's also the matter of boredom, or rather the near total absence of it. Psychologist Aaron Westgate has researched boredom extensively and suggests that it often arises from a mismatch between what we're doing and what feels meaningful. Ancient life, filled with immediate tangible tasks tied directly to survival and social bonding, left little room for the kind of directionless boredom that modern humans battle daily. You don't get bored waiting for water to boil over a fire while surrounded by people you've known your entire life. You get bored waiting for a web page to load alone in a room full of screens but empty of company. This brings us to something crucial. Solitude itself was rare. For nearly all of human history, being physically alone for long stretches was unusual and often dangerous. Groups meant safety. Groups meant shared warmth, shared vigilance, shared laughter. Now flip that. Many people today live alone, work alone, and spend evenings scrolling alone even while surrounded by millions of others in a city. Your brain, built for constant low-level social contact, interprets this modern solitude as a subtle, chronic stressor, even when you can't name why you feel off. So if hunter-gatherers worked less, moved more, decided less, and connected constantly, why does modern life feel so relentlessly busy despite all our labor-saving technology? Because the structure changed, but the wiring didn't. You gained washing machines and grocery stores and instant communication, yet somehow filled every spare hour with new obligations. Sussman's research suggests this isn't an accident of laziness or poor time management. It's a mismatch between an ancient rhythm and a modern economy that treats time itself as something to be filled, optimized, and monetized rather than simply lived. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Ching. Your ancestors likely had more leisure time, more social connection, and more built-in movement than you do right now,